Okay, we'll start for the day. So we have discussed, we are almost completed this except the staging tables. Yesterday Vamsi created the source systems and trust configuration also. So trust I already showed you uh, everything, like the trust sheet also I showed you. I'll also share this document with you. This is from a project document, this trust sheet. Okay, and as well as other documents. Okay, so what we'll do today is we'll learn the staging tables today. See, first thing, already you would have noticed one thing, that for every base object we are having one landing table. Okay, so you would have already noticed that, but the staging tables is actually a part of the base object. Staging table staging table, one second, is inherited. The structure of the staging table is inherited from the base object. Okay, so what we'll do is, and again one more thing I'm repeating, staging table is source wise. Okay, so for every source we'll have a staging table. Okay, so first of all let me create the staging table for this party. So for this party, let me check the document here. So the structure of the staging table, you can see PKSRC object, then row ID object. See, most of the things are the same as the base object. Only thing is the PKSRC object. So this is something I already told you. PKSRC object, this is a this should be the primary key from the source. For example, if party ID is the primary key, so this should be mapped to the PKSRC object in the mapping. So that is important because this is what enables you to have a 360-degree view on the view of the customer. So it is important that PKSRC object should be mapped with the party ID from the source. But remember, PKSRC object is not the primary key for the staging table. It's not the primary key for the staging table, but it's like a primary key. So you can say it's almost like a primary key, but it is pulled from the source, not system generated. And this row ID object is actually not not used. So it has a special usage, which I will tell you later. So first let's try to create this staging table. To create a staging table, you go here. Okay, so yesterday I created one staging table for CKR system. Okay, what I'll do, I'll create a staging table for, just right click here. Before that, take the log and right click, add staging table. See, depending upon your project convention, you can either say ST or STG or anything, depends upon your project convention, how they are taking things. Then party, then the source system name that you need to choose. So we've already created for CKR, so we are going to create for the next things. Let me close this document. So based on the source systems, we have already created for CKR, so we need to create for all these things. See, remember, let's say party table, COC, or let's say this lookup will not contribute directly to the party table. So in this case, we'll not create a staging table for lookup source, but we'll create lookup tables for remaining sources except lookup. You understand, right? So whichever source system is going to contribute data for a particular base object, only though that source system should be mapped. Should be mapped means the staging table should be created, because mapping, once you create a staging table, then you have to create the mapping. You understand, right? Say, then MLO. Okay, so this is also MLO. Now choose the source system. See, this is very important, that you need to, here I can give XYZ also, anything I can give, and here also I can give anything. It's doesn't matters much, because that's just a name, but this is important. I've given this MLO for convention's sake, but that's not important. So here this is important, you need to choose the source system correctly. Okay, and then there's a system, there's a option called as preserve source system keys. Okay, we'll try to understand quickly what is preserve source system keys. Preserve source system keys means, see, already I told you, as of now you know that the row id underscore object, this, the row id underscore object is the primary key. Okay, it's the primary key in the base object, and it's a system generated column, system generated values, that is sequence generated starting with 1 and incremented by 1. Okay, but you have an option of what you can do is, you can you can, instead of, there are two things. Okay, once is row id object will be system generated by default, system generated. Okay, generated by default. But if you select that option, that is preserve source system key, let's say if you select this preserve source system key, what will happen is this will not be system generated anymore. Okay, it will not be system generated, rather row id object will be taken from the source primary key. Primary key, you understand, right? Whatever primary key you are getting from the source system, that will be stored in the row id underscore object. Now we have a problem here. See, remember this option, if you use this option should be used carefully. The reason is, let's say there is a source, let's say source called as ckr, and there's a source called as mlo. Okay, so let's say this, their keys start from 10111 to 199999. Let's make it very simple so that there's no confusion. And let's say this MLO, their keys start from 10,000 to, let's say, 30,000. Okay, so I'm, see this, I'm talking about the primary key range. Okay, primary key range in this source system and the primary key range in this source system. Let's say this is the thing, and you're using preserve source system keys. So what will happen, this will not create any problem, because you can see after 99999 10,000 is starting. But what happens later, if this source system, CKR source system, they decide to use 1000 10,000, because their customer base is increasing, so they decide to use increasing number. So what will happen, this number and this number will collide. Okay, this number and this number will collide, so which will create real issues. Okay, so this option should normally should never be used except for reference source systems. Okay, except if the source system, if the table base object is a reference base object or a lookup base object, then you should use this option. Why? Because reference systems, for example Zender, let's talk about the postcode. See, postcode means pin code or zip code. Okay, postcode. So postcode, when we talk about postcode, who gives the information about postcode? See, there is a table, there will create a table called as c underscore postcode. That's the base object. Now who is going to provide data for the postcode? No one except the government has the right to provide information about the list of valid postcode. You can do Google, that's fine, but when we work for a company, you cannot depend upon Google or Yahoo. Okay, so you have to get the valid list of postcodes from the government, because every day, not every day, every week or so, new postcodes are also added. So in here you will have only one source system. Okay, in this postcode table you will have only one source system, so here you can use this preserve source system keys, but normally you should not use it. If you use it, you will be in trouble. And you can all you can see here that the names, that is the name, alias, status, account type. You can see here, you can observe one thing, that I cannot create any new column here. Okay, you can see I can only select the columns, but I cannot create any new columns. Thing here is, that's why I told you the structure of a staging table is inherited from the base object. So whatever structure you are seeing here, name, alias, status, account type, is nothing but it is taken from the base object. Now you have an option of selecting all. If I say this, then it is all is selected. Okay, I can do that. Otherwise, let's say my source, let's say this MLO only contributes to the name and alias. Let's say MLO does not provide any information for status and account type. let's assume, then you do not need to map these two fields. Okay, so you need to map only those fields that are contributed by your source system. Okay, so let's, as of now, let's check all. Okay, now see, allow null, I already told you. Allow null update, this is nothing but the same option that I told you yesterday in the base object. If you say allow null, then the high privilege will be given to the um, null fields, and allow null foreign key. This should never be used, because if you use this, what will happen is, even if the lookup is missing, okay, even if, let's say, see, the rule of data loading is parent child. Every, in a data model, you will have parent and you will have child. So the parent should be loaded first and then the child should be loaded. And if you try to do it the reverse way, that is load the child first then the parent, then your job should fail. So that is a successful scenario. But if you choose this, okay, then what will happen is, I mean, null keys, I mean, even if, let's say, the reference is missing, still also it will load the table. Okay, so you do not need to choose this. And the lookup configuration, lookup system, lookup table, and lookup column, this is needed for child tables. Okay, this is not needed for parent tables. So when I go to the child tab, I'll tell you, like, that is when I go to the address and contact, when I create the staging tables for that, then I'll tell you what is this. Okay, so as of now, I'm saying okay. So you can see the staging table will be created. Okay, now I leave the remaining thing to you, that is creating the staging table for remaining systems. For all these remaining systems, for party table, you create the staging tables. Okay, that's the exercise for you. And for we'll move to the contacts, because it's a repeated exercise, so I'm not doing it. Okay, so I'm leaving that to you. Now the contact staging tables and the address staging tables are also similar, but there's an additional point, and the additional thing is, see, in the contact staging table, what you need to do is, you need to choose the lookup as well. Okay, that is, the lookup will be based on the party ID. This is the party ID. Okay, so it will be based on the party ID. First of all, let me create stg underscore, what is the name, contact underscore, let's say we create it for ckr. So ckr, because already there, so choose all the columns. Everything is same, whatever we did for the parent, but there is an additional configuration that we need to do, and that configuration is called as the lookup configuration. Lookup config. Why lookup? Just check the data model once. If you check the data model once, then you see that the party and the address table, what is the relationship between the party and the address table? This is the relationship. The party ID of the address is equal to the row ID underscore object of the party. So you can see the party ID is actually what? It's a foreign key. It's a foreign key from the party table. The party ID in here and in here, that is an address and in contact, is actually it's actually a foreign key. Okay, and it is the key is from row id underscore object. So what we are doing is, just try to understand, let's say one record Sunil got loaded, and the row id object for Sunil is, let's say, 1. Try to understand this. The row id object for Sunil, let's say, is 1. Then this party id, let's say we are trying to load the address. Okay, I'll put it clearly so that there's no confusion. First, just assume that my database is empty. Okay, I have not loaded anything, I just created the data model. Now when I load a record called as Sunil, okay, the row id object will be 1. Clear? So when I load the, see, I have already done the load for the this table, party table. So party table load is done. Now when I try to load this table, see, address table, when I try to load the uh, okay, when I try to load the C address table, what I'm trying to load? I'm trying to load the address of Sunil. Okay, so when I'm trying to load the address of Sunil, what will be the party ID? The party ID should be 1, because this is the value, this value should be same. Okay, and basically this substitution will happen. You'll see the substitution logic is called as the lookup logic. One second. Sorry. So the substitution method, substitution logic is nothing but the lookup logic. So what will happen is, you see here, you just try to understand the party ID here. You have a column that is called as a party ID in here. You have a party ID here in the staging table, and here also you have a party ID. You can see the party ID here is 1001. That is, what is the party ID here? The party ID in here is the primary key from the source. Try to understand, the party ID here is a primary key from the source, and the party ID and the PKSRC object are actually same. Both are the primary key from the source. But you can see here, the party ID here, it is not primary key from the source anymore. It is translated to the row ID object. So lookup, what is happening here is, I'll tell you what is lookup. Lookup is, what is happening here, the primary key from source, that is, which column is it? It is party ID column from staging table. Okay, so the party ID column from the staging table is nothing but it's the primary key from the source, will be translated to the what, when this is loaded into here, this is actually translated to the row ID underscore object of party table. See, you try to understand, because the lookup is a bit confusing topic. I think still most of you will not understand this, but that's okay, because when I actually load the data and I show this, whatever I'm telling you theoretically, when I'll actually load the data and I'll show you, then you will get a complete picture of that. But as of now, just try to remember this. That is the, this is the party ID, that is, this is the primary key from the source, that is this, but this will be translated, this will be translated to what, the row ID underscore object, and that translation mechanism is nothing but the lookup mechanism. Okay, and that is something that will not happen by default. Okay, that will not happen by default. We need to do it, and that configuration is called as lookup configuration. So remember, as of now, you should have understood, you are clear that the staging table of the child, that is the place where the lookup makes some sense, because here the lookup does not make any sense, because I do not have anything to translate here. But here, because the foreign key is there, so I need to translate this into this. So this is where I use the translation logic. Okay, so I'll configure that and I'll show you. So see, remember, how many columns I have? Around 10 columns I have in this contact. Okay, so you check this pen mark. Okay, so pen mark is disabled for all except this party ID. You can check it. Okay, it's enabled only for the party ID column. Why? So pen mark means you can configure the lookup. Okay, pen mark means lookup can be configured. The reason why you have a pen mark over here is because, if you remember, it's based on the relationship, because we have created a relationship for which party ID. You can check it here later. If you go to the relationship, you remember that we related the party ID of this table to the row ID underscore object of the party table. So that is why this is enabled. Okay, for all the columns, for any column for which you create a relationship, the lookup configuration will be enabled. Okay, so click on this pen symbol. There are two types of lookups. See, this is the lookup which will be used in 95% of the cases. Okay, 95% of the cases in MDM, you will see this kind of lookup. That is translation of primary key from the source into the row ID underscore object of the parent. Okay, so this is mechanism that happens in the child, where it reads the value from the here. See, the PKSRC object in the staging table will be stored in the cross-reference table. Okay, I'll just show you the PKSRC object uh, yeah, and for those of you who are unable to open this enterprise manager, when you open this, you go to advanced here, you see this carefully, you go to advanced here and say proceed to this. Okay, then you should be able to open it. Okay, so logged in, I'll check the for any table. Let me check the party table itself. In the party table, can you see some PKSRC object? There is no column called as PKSRC object. Okay, so but if I check the cross reference, that is xref, you see the xref contains a column called as PKSRC object. Okay, so PKSRC object means the primary key from the source. So one thing should be clear by now, that the primary key from the source is never stored in the base object, but it is stored in the cross reference. Clear? The primary key is never stored in the base object, but it is always stored in the cross reference. So this translation, just try to understand how this translation happens. You might not understand, but no problem, you will get it later when I load the data. I'll tell you again the concept of lookup. So you need to select the lookup system name, that is the CKR, and the PKSRC from the cross reference, because the lookup will happen to the party cross reference. You see, I'm trying to configure the lookup for which contact table. In the contact table, I'm configuring the lookup for, I'm referring to the CKR source system and I'm referring to party. Okay, party PKSRC object, because that contains the primary key from the source. Say okay. So that is done, then just say okay. Okay, I'll quickly create another staging table just to show you what is the difference, and we are going to create it for MLO now. So what I need to give, stg underscore contact underscore MLO, and I need to choose MLO, not CKR. Correct? I don't need to use this. I select all the columns. Now see the party, see this lookup configuration carefully. The lookup configuration, I'm clicking this. See, what is the source system I need to choose here? I cannot choose CKR because I'm trying to configure for MLO. So I need to configure MLO. Okay, and say okay. So that completes the second table configuration. And for the address table, I leave that as an exercise for you. Okay, you create the staging table address for addresses. How many staging tables you are going to create? How many staging table you are going to create? Just check here. You are going to create staging table for all. You do not need to create staging table for lookup, except lookup. You need to create staging table for all. Okay, so you try to create the staging table for the address and the contact. Okay, so with that, the staging table is almost complete except the properties. Now we'll go through the properties quickly, because we should have started the cleanse functions, the mapping functionality, but we are lagging behind, but no problem. So this I already told you. Columns, this is, see, lookup you can later change it also. Okay, what you can do is whatever we have configured, you can go here and you can change it as well later. If you have done any error or something, you can change it. Now coming to the settings, you can see the settings tab is disabled. Okay, so the setting tab is only enabled if you create a mapping. You understand, right? When you create a mapping, that is from a landing table to the staging table, then only this settings option is enabled. So what we'll do is, anyway mapping will be covered later, so we'll quickly create a simple mapping. To create a mapping, just say add mapping. Just give your convention like m underscore or mapping underscore, whatever depends upon your company. Best is m underscore. Now what are we trying to create? Account, sorry, let's say party, m party. Then we are trying to do it for CKR. You can also give the staging table name as well, but this is fine. Okay, so I'll give it this way. Choose the landing table. We are trying to do it for landing party, and choose the party table. Choose the table properly. Okay, there are many tables inside, and it's a secure. Okay, so you can see the mapping is created. Just see this. So we are not going to work on this mapping right now. Okay, we are going to work on it later. But why this party ID is created in float? Okay, see, this party ID should not be in float. I told you in the last class that the party ID, it's fine if you already created it. See, remember one more small thing, I think you already know. Remember that the primary key of any source system in anywhere in the world, I'm not talking about MDM or data warehouse, it should always be a character or varchar, or you can say it's basically it should be a string. Okay, you can ask me that it can be a number as well. That's correct. Normally it will be a numeric value only, but it will be a numeric value like this. But what we'll make is we'll change the data type of this from number to varchar or string. Why? Because see, primary key, what is a number? What is the difference between a number and the string? The difference between a number and a string is number is something that can be added up. String, you do not add it, you concatenate it. Okay, so the primary key is not supposed to be added. Okay, primary key, there's no point in adding one primary key in another primary key, right? I mean, it's similar to what you say in non-additive fact, something like that. Okay, so this is meaningless. So that is why always whenever you create a primary key, always go with varchar or char. Okay, never use numeric, decimal, date, those kind of things. Okay, so what you need to do later is you go here, the party ID, you change that you do not create number, as well as postcode is should also, it should not be created as number. It's fine if you create that as a number, that doesn't matters much. So this is fine if you create it as number, or you can create it as an integer, that's fine. But party ID should be string. And let me check this. If we have created the party, what is the, this is fine. The party ID here is char 14, you can check it. Okay, but it's not necessary that in here this is also char 14. This party ID can be char 100 as well. So that is something we are going to translate. The second type of lookup is let's say, okay, so I told you two types of lookups are there, and in 95% of the percentage of the cases we'll be using this lookup, that is lookup translation. The second type of lookup is very simple, you already know what is that. The logic is, let's say I create a column called as xyz here, and I create a column called as xyz here. Okay, so I try to relate this column with this column. That is the simple, the normal lookup. You already know this lookup. Okay, so this is a second type of lookup, because this doesn't serve much purpose, so that is why we do not use it. But yes, this can also be useful sometimes. But first let's concentrate on the main lookup, because this is very important. The secondary lookup is very easy. What you need to do is just create one column here, or just and create one column here. So the name need not be same, the name can be anything literally. Okay, the name can be, let's say, anything, any name. Okay, you can relate this with this in the lookup. So that's the second type of lookup. Okay, now so mapping, we just created a dummy mapping, we are not going to map it now. The only reason why we created is I just wanted to show you this option, staging table and CCAR. Yeah, you can see this option should be enabled by now. You can see this option is enabled. For here, this is disabled for MLO. Okay, so this option should be will be enabled if you have created a mapping. And what is this option? This option talks about two things. In the architecture, if you remember properly, when we load data from the landing table to the staging table, okay, there is a concept of raw table and reject table. Raw is nothing but it's a copy of the landing table data for a certain amount of time, okay, and or certain amount of load, it could be both. And reject is simple rejecting. There is also a concept of delta detection and cleansing. We are going to this tab, where is the tab? This tab discusses about this configuration is for raw and this is for delta. Okay, reject, you do not need to configure anything in the reject. Automatically it will be rejected and it will be sent to the reject table. Okay, and the cleansing we are going to study in very details but later. So today we are going to finish the delta detection and the concept of raw. See the delta detection. Okay, first of all let me complete the raw logic. Raw logic is, see, to enable the raw you click on this option and let's say if I make 3 loads, if I make it 3, now what is going to happen if I make it 3? Let's check what will happen. See, when I load the data for first time, let's say 10 rows I load, then 10 rows will be stored here. Then I load it for the second time I load 15 rows. Then third time I load 30 rows. So in the raw table, 10 plus 15 plus 30, these rows will be stored in my raw table. Let's say I load 50. Then what will happen? This will be erased and this will be stored. And later if I make it 100, then again this is erased and 100 is stored here. So the logic is very simple. Only recent 3 loads will be stored. And this option is also the same. Preserve an audit trail, that is if I say like 2 days, or you can say 2 month, it means the source data for 2 months will be stored irrespective of, let's say in 2 months 1000 load happens, so that will store the data for 1000 loads. Okay, so that is very simple. Normally you do not need to enable. If you want to enable for some source systems, you can enable it for 2-3 loads. Okay, depending upon how you are how your production support uh, how your production support team needs it. Okay, you can also change that later as well. So that's a very simple option. And enable delta detection. Okay, so you already know what is delta, but still I'll give a quick very small refresh on what is delta. See, there are two types of loads. There are two types of load. One is a full load. Okay, see, I'm giving the concept of delta from scratch. Okay, so there are basically in IT, in anywhere in data warehouse or in MDM, there are two types of load. One is a full load and another one is a delta load. What is a full load? Full load means drag and drop everything. So let's say in CKR source system I have 10 million customers. So when I try to integrate this CKR system with my MDM, when I load it for the first time, this will happen normally for the first time, and delta load will be from second time onwards. Okay, delta will be from second time onwards. 1 second. So let's try to understand what is delta and what is. So let's take a very simple scenario. Let's say CKR, you're having a source system, and let's consider the scenario today. So today 1011 Sunil, okay, 1034 Ajay, okay, and tomorrow file in tomorrow's data, tomorrow TOM, I think that's so in tomorrow you have 1011 Sunil K, Ajay, and 1034 Ajay, and 3011 Amit, and let's say there's another record here, 4055 Akhil. Okay, so let's say yesterday this was the case and today this is the case. Okay, so just try to understand what is happening here. So a record could, there are 4 indicators in a record: either insert or update or delete or no change. Either insert, update, delete or no change. For example, consider this customer. So 1011 Sunil. So Sunil 1011 Sunil, this customer, you can see, um, here it is Sunil, here it is Sunil K. It means basically this customer information has updated. So this is called as an update. This is called as an update. Whereas Ajay will be triggered as no change because nothing has changed in Ajay. Okay, and Akhil was there in yesterday's file, but today he is not there. So basically Akhil will be treated as delete. And Amit is not here, but he is present in tomorrow's file. So Amit is called as insert. You understand, right? This is very easy. Okay, so how this thing is done, because how this is done by when I compare the primary key pksrc object. This is the pksrc object. When I compare two rows, what I'm doing, I'm first of all checking if this particular primary key is already there in this today's file. Okay, if it is there, then I'm checking if anything has changed or not. If changed, then that's an update. If not changed, then that is no change. And if it is new, for example this Amit record, it's not there in this, so this is called as an insert. Okay, and similarly delete. So how I am doing it, I'm doing it basically based on the primary key, correct? Based on the primary key I'm doing it, and the primary key here in staging table will be pk src object. That is the primary key in this staging table. Okay, so how a delta detection mechanism works? A delta detection mechanism works first of all based on the primary key. It will join these two data. That is, for a primary key, for a delta detection mechanism to work, you need two files. Correct, you need two files for a delta mechanism, because you need to compare the two files. Based on the pksrc object, you are going to join the two files, and then once you join it, you are going to decide on which columns you are going to detect the delta. For example, if the name changes, and let's say you also have alias, you also have other columns, so if this changes, then treat it as a update. If only this changes, then treat it as an insert. Okay, sorry, update. So you first of all enable this and say detect deltas by comparing all columns in the mapping. So this is a very generic method of detecting the deltas, and this is very from performance point of view, this is not good. Okay, so what you do is you normally detect deltas through a date column that is normally last updated. So if the last update date has changed, then you treat that record as delta. So this is the best method, and this is practically used in production or in live environment. You can also do it on specific columns like name status, name alias status. For example, name alias. So if name and alias has changed, then it is going to uh, treated as a delta record, or you can say as an update record. So this is very simple configuration delta. Okay, so you need to click here, and normally this is enough. I mean, last update date is enough. And allowed staging if a prior duplicate is rejected. For example, this option is what it does is, so let's say when you process the record today, and let's say some customers get rejected today. Okay, so tomorrow what will happen is again that customer will get rejected, and see, if it is rejected, it means it will not proceed to the staging table. So if you select this option, what will happen is, let's say Sunil was rejected yesterday. So if you select this option, then Sunil record will be it will be processed today irrespective of any duplicate issue. So this is simply bypassing the logic, or you can say bypassing the duplicate check. Normally you should not choose it until unless there is a specific requirement from the client. Okay, so that completes, one second, so that completes the staging table configuration. And the lookup, see, lookup is not done yet, because lookup I just told you theoretically. So I am sure that most of you still did not understand much in this lookup. We don't need to worry, because lookup is a bit complex, slightly complex concept. So yeah, see, this enable delta detection is the first one, is by comparing all the columns in mapping. So this option is same as using this option. Okay, this option is same as using this option. That is, delta detection will be done using all the columns. For example, if name changes, alias changes, status changes, any of these records, any of the column changes, then that will be treated as a delta record. Okay, so this option is same as using this. Okay, but if I remove all, if I say only name, it means if the name change, then only it will be treated as delta. Let's say if the status, account type or alias changes, then that will not be treated as a delta. So that is a very simple thing. So the best method is to go with a single column, that is the last update date. Okay, I hope you understand this. This delta detection is very easy, it's not difficult. Lookup is slightly, it's difficult, but no need to worry about lookup, because when I load the data, I'll show you the concept of lookup. Okay, so if you did not understood, that's fine, but go through the uh, PPT number 2 has complete details. 1 and 2, I think it's there in the 2, in the beginning pages. You have the concept of lookup, so you try to go through that. Okay, with that, most of the things here is done. We can start with the cleanse functions. See, I already told you about some details about cleansing. See, first of all, cleansing is done inside a mapping. For example, here in the architecture, from loading data from landing to staging, that is called as a mapping. So inside the mapping, we handle the cleansing logic. So that is very simple. Okay, there should not be any confusion in that. Now I already told you that cleansing can be done in multiple ways. Okay, so you can either do it in ETL also. You can use ETL like Power Center to do the cleansing. Okay, or you can use IDQ or data quality, any DQ tool, data quality tool like IDQ or Oracle data quality to do the cleansing. Okay, and you can also use, if you do not use it externally, then you can use in Informatica MDM's cleansing abilities. Cleansing abilities. See, automation scheduling in Informatica MDM is like you do not have an automatic scheduler that you have in other tools. For example, in Power Center, there's an automatic scheduler that is there, so you can schedule the jobs. Here you cannot schedule in that manner. If you want to run the jobs, you have to do it using this tool, and if you want to schedule the job, there is a command prompt that is there, that is MDM execute batch proc. Okay, so this is the name of the API that you are going to use to execute jobs in the batch mode. So you have to kick off this particular script. This is nothing but it is simply triggering this stage table. So it is trying to load this particular stage table. So if you want to schedule it, what you have to do is in your AutoSys or in your Trivoli, any scheduler, you have to copy this and then you need to mention, I mean, you need to kick this off. This is similar to like PMCMD, what you have in Power Center. This is the feature that is similar to the PMCMD. Okay, so okay. So MDM's cleansing abilities you can use, or you can use ETL, or you can use data quality. Okay, so or you could use a combination. This better. It's the third option. This is the second option. This is the MDM plus DQ. So that depends upon. I think I've explained you regarding this. See, you need an ETL and DQ if your data quality is very bad, and this you need it when it is normal or bad, and this is normal, because the thing is the MDM is not a data quality tool. Okay, Informatica MDM is an MDM tool, master data management tool. It's not a data quality tool. Okay, so data quality tool is a data quality tool. The name itself explains that data quality is about checking the quality of the data and correcting it. Okay, so if your data quality is very bad, you need a specialist. Let's say you need a specialist data quality tool, not necessarily IDQ. It could be any data quality tool like Oracle data quality or anything. And you could also use MDM plus DQ, okay, if it is bad only for some source systems. Only for some source systems it is bad, okay? But for remaining source system, if it is normal, you could also use a hybrid combination of this. Otherwise, this is the best option. If your data quality is normal, then this is best because this will reduce the cost, okay? No, this version management and all that is not there in Informatica MDM. Okay, the version management that you have in your what you say, other tools like ETLs and other thing, you do not have version management in here. You create a base object, and let's say if I want to change any options, there is no versioning here like version 1, version 2, version 3, version 10. So basically it's everything is overridden. So this is a small limitation for not only for this tool. Remember, versioning is not there for any MDM tool in the world, okay? If you go to any MDM tool, you will not see versioning because you do not need the concept of versioning in an MDM tool. In an ETL it becomes mandatory because in ETL the changes are very frequent and you need to backtrack. So you need to keep the old mappings, old workflows. But in MDM you do not, there's no need of that. So that's the reason why no MDM tool, I'm not talking only about Informatica MDM, I mean most of the MDM tools like Siebel and all that, they do not provide any version management software or anything, okay? Now, okay, so that's about the cleansing. Now what we'll do is, see, we'll take the cleansing in this way. See, first I've already told you this mapping. I showed you how to create a very basic mapping. You kindly change the data type of this to string, okay, or varchar. It's not needed now, but later we can do it. Okay, so um, see, the cleansing is very simple. For example, what is cleansing? One small example of cleansing is, let's say this is a very small example of cleansing. Let's say you have a name called as Sunil. Okay, so let's say convert it to you want to convert it to an uppercase. Okay, so what you do is, it's very simple. You say add a function string uppercase. Okay, then let's say name, and you connect it this way. I'm just demonstrating it, I'll tell you later. So this is, and I say go here test, I say Sunil, and just click on test. Or one second, let me, I think, configure this. Okay, the process server is not configured, that is why it is showing an error. So it's a good thing that you can learn a new thing. So see, this is how you configure a process server. I already told in the architecture that there are two types of things. Okay, that is, you see here there's a hub server and there's a cleanse match server. Cleanse match server is nothing but the process server only. So hub server and process server are different. Cleanse match server and process server are the same. So I already told you that if you want to run anything, then you need a process server. So you just saw that I tried to execute this mapping. Okay, so you can see this, I'm getting an error stating that the cleanse server are not online. Okay, so what I'll do is I go to the process server. Normally your administrator will do that. You click on this plus. I have installed my process server here in localhost. Okay, so and cleanse mode, you can see there are two things in MDM. One is cleansing and one is match. These are the two main things that a cleanse server does: cleansing and matching. Okay, online and batch means online means real time, batch means batch. Okay, so you can enable, you can create multiple process servers as well. You can install multiple process servers and you can create multiple process servers. Normally that's not needed, but that's an option Informatica provides. Okay, so you can make it online and batch. Normally you should make it both online and batch. There's no point in keeping dedicated servers until unless your project becomes very big. So you have to keep dedicated one dedicated server for online and another dedicated server for batch mode, so that the load on the batch side does not interrupt the online processing. That might be the case in that, but that's, we're not going through that now. So just what I've given is just localhost, and I just said okay, and just save it. Now if I try to go here and run the mapping, you will see that this should succeed. You can see here the name I've given Sunil, and here the output you can say SUNIL. This is one type of cleansing, or you can say it's just a transformation. You might, this is a very simple thing, I'm just explaining it. Okay, so basically there are many types of things that you can do inside this cleansing. In this cleansing, inside this mapping part, there are many things that you can do. So what we will do is we'll go through the cleanse functions first, because when you right click and you say add function, it is nothing but it is taking the cleanse functions that is there in here. Okay, all the cleanse functions that are there in this tab. Okay, so so what you need to do is, what we will do is we will first go through the, we'll go through the different type of cleanse functions that we have. Then we'll go through the mappings. That mappings, when we create, we'll go through this particular requirement. Based on this mapping sheet, the account is changed. See, whenever you see account, you replace that with party. Okay, you can do that also. This is the mapping sheet. We'll try to understand this tomorrow, not tomorrow, probably tomorrow or day after tomorrow. We'll try to understand this mapping sheet, and you also go through this mapping sheet whenever you have time. Try to understand. Mapping sheet means it's very simple, how data is loaded from the landing table to the staging table. This is the document that describes it. Okay, so that's the mapping sheet. And yeah, so what we'll do is tomorrow we'll go through the cleanse functions, all the different type of cleanse functions that we have. Trim, substring, all this tomorrow we'll go in details with all the things. Okay, we'll also see additional libraries. Once we do that, then we'll go with the mappings. Okay, so I'll finish the class today because we cannot start a new topic today. Okay, so the
Hey Sunil, do you have a few minutes then,
yeah,
or do you have to run to a different plan?
no.
So we started. We wanted to start with profiling and lookup right today. Do you think this is a good time we can discuss that? We wanted
uh,
to do a bit of profiling today, if you
okay,
remember.
no problem, we'll do it tomorrow because today it'll take around 10-15 minutes or something. Otherwise,
Okay.
okay, we do not have much time. I don't think we can do it in 5 minutes. But yeah, what we'll do is tomorrow we'll, at the beginning of the class, you remind me, we'll go through the profiling, and once that is done, then we'll start with this cleanse functions.
Cleanse functions are going to take time, right, Sunil? I can remind you later
No.
if
What
it's.
we'll do is we
Let
will start the profiling tomorrow. Okay, I'll tell you what is the profiling, and I'll give you concept importance of that. I'll show you the sample report profiling everything. Once that is done, it'll take 20 minutes or so, 15-20 minutes. Then we'll start the cleanse functions.
Okay. And one other question I had was, so we have only one process configured here, right? Is
Correct.
it like for integration service, right? If you see there is a bit of load, we can have create multiple integration service, right? Where
Correct.
we tell it which integration service to use. But here I don't, where are we doing it?
This
Does that make
is
sense?
when you install the product, you are going to create multiple, you can create multiple cleanse server. I already created one cleanse server and then I configured that cleanse server here. If you want, you can also create more than one cleanse servers.
Right. But I need to tell the mapping to run it. Is it like the Informatica itself decides to which, a process server to use?
Yeah, that's what, right?
What is it?
You provide it here, that is for online and batch mode. So when you say batch mode, it is automatically going to decide that in the runtime. When I say
Okay,
on,
let me put it this way. Let me put it this way, okay? I create three processes for batch and one for online, right?
correct, yeah.
So I'm running a batch process.
Mhm.
That process uses which process server? Because we have three batch process servers.
If you have three batch process servers, that control will be internal to Informatica. Okay, that is
Okay,
which one to use, that will be internal to Informatica. That is the called
okay,
as
that
load
was.
balancing. That is internal. You do not have control over that.
We have to install a load balancer for that separately, right,
No, load balancer,
Sunil?
this will be automatically taken care. You do not need to worry about that.
Okay, okay, thanks, Sunil. Okay.
Okay. So any more questions anyone has? Then if not, then we'll finish the session.
So Sunil, so you expecting even the party to have the landing tables, right? I mean the stage tables.
Correct. Everything will have staging table. Party and account address will have, I think, 7 staging tables.
Okay, 7. So 7 multiplied by 3, 21
Yeah,
stage
yeah,
tables.
that's correct. 21 staging tables. With
Okay,
and
okay.
the lookup should be configured for all the address and contact. It's not needed. It should not be done for the party table.
Party.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it
but
must
these,
it
yeah,
must be configured for all the staging tables. Otherwise, if
all,
you do not
yeah.
configure lookup, what will happen is the translation will not happen.
Okay, yeah, all right. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, and yeah, so some people dropped off. I think we will not have class on first because I think that's 31st night for you. So I don't want to disturb you on 31st night. So 31st night for US people. So I think we'll cancel the class on first. So on first India or on 31st night, there will be no class. Okay. Okay, guys, I'll send an email to everyone regarding the same so that there's no confusion. Okay. Okay, guys. Then if you have any doubts, you note it down and then you can ask me at the beginning of the class also or at the end of the class so that both is fine. Okay. Okay, guys. We'll drop off.
Excellent, yeah.
Okay, thanks.